You ever feel like you're awake but not really alive? Like you're moving, breathing, talking, but something inside you's been asleep for years? What if I told you that your whole life has been scripted? That every safe choice you've ever made, college, job, even your friends, wasn't your choice at all. It was the simulation. And you? Just another dreamer caught in its loop. Because there's a secret no one told you. Big dreams don't die. They get buried under expectation, fear, comfort, and the illusion of being realistic. But once in a while, someone wakes up. Someone like Sophia. A girl raised to be quiet, soft-spoken, always agreeable. But inside her, a storm, a voice, a vision. She didn't want a normal life. She wanted to reshape cities, design buildings that felt like music, craft homes that healed broken people. Not just be an architect, but an artist who carved soul into stone. But to chase that dream, she would have to lose everything. And this is the story of what happens when someone stops living by the script and starts writing her own. You ready? It started with a glitch, a tiny one, the kind you'd ignore. Sophia was sitting at her engagement party surrounded by smiles. She was wearing the exact dress her mother chose, nodding at the future everyone had planned for her. But in the mirror behind the cake table, she saw something. Her reflection didn't blink. It stared at her, still, silent, almost synthetic. She turned around. Everyone was frozen for half a second. Then they laughed again like nothing happened. And that night, something else happened. A notebook appeared at her doorstep. No name, no sender. The first page? You are asleep inside a simulation built to keep you small. Escape begins when you choose your dream over your fear. She laughed, tossed it aside. But the next morning, her diary pages were blank. Her best friend repeated the same words her father said, word for word. Her professor forgot her name. Everything felt pre-written. And then came the dream. Woman in white, eyes glowing with ancient knowledge. She said, "You've lived this life 12 times. In every one, you gave up on your dream." Sophia woke up in a sweat. She stared into the mirror. This time, the reflection smiled first. That was the moment she knew. This world wasn't real. And her dream? It wasn't just a dream. It was a map, the only way out. Sophia tried to shake it off. Maybe it was stress. Maybe she was just tired. But the signs didn't stop. She started hearing echoes, the same conversations in different places. Her fiancé, Daniel, would ask her about the wedding cake, and her mother would repeat the exact sentence an hour later. Same tone, same pause, same smile. And then came the blocks. Her university project, a bold redesign of an old cathedral into a community sanctuary, got rejected. Too ambitious, her professor said. Too emotional, said the review board. Too unrealistic. But in her gut, Sophia knew it was more than feedback. It was control. She remembered the dream woman's words. The system corrects rebellion with rejection. Sophia's dreams weren't just big, they were dangerous. Dangerous to a world that thrived on mediocrity. Because dreaming big requires one thing the simulation can't afford: free will. And that night, she saw it. In a park, under flickering lights, a man was screaming into the sky. "I remember. I chose to be a pilot. I chose to fly." He was dragged away. Everyone ignored it. But not Sophia. She followed the path he left behind. Scattered drawings, half-written notes. One said, "If you're reading this, don't stop. They erase people who wake up." Suddenly, her dream wasn't just about art or buildings. It was about breaking out, about living awake in a world full of sleepers. One day, Sophia found it. Hidden. Inside the spine of the strange notebook was a map, a location marked in red. Midnight. Come alone. Bring your real dream. She snuck out. No phone, no watch, just her old sketchbook, filled with designs no one had ever seen. Designs that came to her in dreams. She reached an abandoned library, forgotten, dust-covered, eerie in its silence. Inside, she met others. Not many, maybe 5, all like her, awake. They called themselves the architects of truth. They told her, the simulation feeds on comfort and fear, but people like you starve it. They offered her a choice: burn her real designs, forget the truth, and return to the illusion. Or submit her work to the Forbidden Board, a place where real dreams go, but never come back. It wasn't just about the buildings anymore. It was about showing the world what could be. Sophia chose the second path, and within 48 hours, she was expelled from university. Her engagement was broken, her bank account froze, and the mirror, the one that never blinked, shattered on its own. But her designs went viral. Underground at first, then whispered about in architectural forums. Then copied. And as she walked alone, homeless, jobless, with nothing but her dream, she smiled. Because finally, she was awake. The days that followed were brutal. Sophia slept in train stations, ate from vending machines. She applied for over 30 jobs and was rejected from everyone. Some companies never responded. Others said, "You're too bold. We're looking for safer minds." But in the quiet hours of the night, she would take out her sketchbook and draw. More than ever, her designs grew wilder, braver, inspired by ruins, emotions, even whispers of past dreams. And then came the anonymous message: "Your submission reached the edge. We saw, we believed, but belief has a cost. Are you willing to give everything?" Sophia hesitated. She had already given everything, hadn't she? But the voice inside whispered, "Not yet." One night, standing in the rain, Sophia passed a digital billboard and saw it. Her design, uncredited, twisted, sanitized. A big corporation had stolen it, made it into a shopping center. What once was meant to heal had become another money machine. She stood there soaked and shivering as people walked past the building, praising its innovation. No one knew her name. That night she almost gave up. She sat on a rooftop, the wind howling around her, gripping the edge. And then she remembered, they erase people who wake up. But she wasn't erased yet, because some dreams fight back. A week later, Sophia received a package. No name, no return address. Inside, a black card with gold edges. It read, "The Dreamer's Summit. 1 seat, 1 voice, 1 shot." Below was a time, a date, and nothing else. She didn't ask how they found her. She just knew she had to go. The summit was hidden beneath an art museum. She had to pass through illusions, mirrors, and motionless guards that blinked only when you stopped looking. Inside, a council of creators, musicians, inventors, visionaries. All of them had sacrificed comfort, careers, loved ones. The room wasn't bright. It pulsed like a heart, alive, ancient, watching. Sophia was invited to speak. She took the podium, trembling, still soaked from a storm she had walked through to get there. She told them everything about the simulation, the mirror, the betrayal, the theft, and the moment she stopped waiting to be chosen and chose herself. When she finished, silence fell. And then, applause. Not polite, not pitiful, raw, real, revolutionary. A woman from the council stood up. She said, "Sophia, the world rejected your dream, but we didn't, and we're no longer hiding." Another man added, "You didn't come here to escape the simulation. You came to bend it." And that's when Sophia understood. Her sacrifices weren't the price. They were the proof she was ready. Sophia left the summit a different person. She wasn't waiting anymore. Not for approval, not for applause, not for a moment to feel ready. She found an abandoned warehouse on the edge of the city, covered in rust, glass, and silence. And with borrowed tools and bruised hands, she turned it into something new. Not a gallery, not a store, a rebellion. She called it the Wake Lab, a space for raw, unfiltered dreamers who refused to be processed. The first exhibit, her stolen design, reimagined, restored, and burned around the edges. She placed it at the center of the room under a banner that read, "They stole my dream." So I built another. People came. At first it was just the curious ones, then the doubters, then the believers. Soon, creators from across the country sent in their rejected works, the art that scared companies, the music labeled too strange, the ideas called unrealistic. Sophia displayed them all. But one night, as she walked alone through the space, she saw something that made her stop. A little girl, maybe 10, staring at a sculpture Sophia had made, a twisted, glowing version of that same mirror from the simulation. The girl whispered, "It feels like it sees me." Sophia knelt down and replied, "It does, because you're not asleep anymore." It didn't take long for the system to respond. Regulators came knocking. News channels called it unlicensed expression. Some critics labeled the Wake Lab a cult. But Sophia didn't care. She wasn't here to be safe. She was here to ignite, and others followed. A filmmaker brought his unreleased short, one that studios rejected for being too honest. A coder installed an AI sculpture that reacted to heartbreak. A poet wrote verses on walls using invisible ink that only appeared when you cried. Sophia had created a gravity, a place where the simulation cracked just enough for people to peek through. But with power came pressure. One evening, her old professor visited, the same one who once told her to tone it down. He looked around unimpressed. "It's beautiful," he said. "But what's the point? They'll never let this last." Sophia looked him dead in the eyes. "It's not supposed to last. It's supposed to wake them up." He didn't respond. But as he walked away, he paused and glanced back, just once, at the mirror, and that was enough. Months passed. Sophia's Wake Lab became a force of nature. People flew in from across the globe to witness its unapologetic defiance of the norm. Creativity spilled over the edges. It was chaos, and it was beautiful. But with every victory came a greater pressure. The corporate world began to close in. Lawsuits, threats, whispers from allies who had suddenly turned into enemies. One evening, a trusted mentor in the underground movement called Sophia. "They're going to shut you down. The system doesn't bend. They'll burn your work, erase your name." Sophia sat in front of the phone, staring at her reflection. Was it worth it? Was the dream worth the cost? She thought about the sleepless nights, the relationships she had sacrificed, the family that no longer understood, the friends who had once shared her vision, now calling her crazy. Was it too much? But as she looked into the glass, into her own tired eyes, she knew. "You can't fake a revolution," she whispered, "and I'm already here." In that moment, she knew the weight of the dream was never meant to break her. It was meant to forge her, to turn her into something unstoppable. She hung up the phone and picked up a paintbrush. The lab wasn't just her creation anymore. It was her legacy. The night before the final battle, Sophia found herself standing alone in the center of the Wake Lab. The air was thick with emotion. Artists, creators, dreamers, all preparing for the inevitable fight. Some would be leaving. Some would be fighting. But one thing was clear: none of them would be silenced. The sound of footsteps echoed down the hall. She turned around, and there stood the little girl from before, the one who had whispered to the mirror. "I'm going to build something just like this," she said. "Something even bigger." Sophia smiled. "Good," she replied. "Make it bigger. Make it yours." And then the sirens began to wail. The system was coming, and they would stop at nothing to break her. But Sophia didn't flinch. She grabbed a can of spray paint, sprayed it across the wall, and wrote, "This is just the beginning." And when the system arrived, the walls shook. But Sophia stood tall. The fire they tried to snuff out only grew brighter. Every battle, every sacrifice had led her here. The dream couldn't be stopped, because she had finally awakened. The battle began just after dawn. The media stormed in, cameras flashing like lightning. Legal teams and city officials filed in with their orders. The Wake Lab was marked for demolition. Sophia stood before them, calm, unwavering. Her eyes scanned the crowd, but she didn't see enemies. She saw the echoes of the same dreamers who had come to her in the beginning. Then, from the back of the room, a voice rang out. "Stop!" It was the little girl. She had grown older in the months since Sophia had first met her, but the fire in her eyes was unchanged. She was no longer a bystander. She was a voice of rebellion, standing tall. "This is my dream too," she said, "and we won't let you take it away." The officials hesitated. For a brief moment, the world seemed to pause. Time itself seemed to hold its breath as the weight of the movement stood in that room. Sophia stepped forward, standing beside the girl, her hand resting on the shoulder of the next generation. The crowd fell silent. She spoke. "You can take down the walls. You can shut down the doors. But you'll never take our fire." And with those words, she took the first step forward, not away from the fight, but deeper into it. The lab did. Close. The officials came. The demolition was scheduled, but the movement Sophia had started could not be erased. Sophia's name was not the one that mattered anymore. The dream itself was the force that lived on, pulsating and growing in the hearts of people who would never stop believing. The system tried to bury it, but there was no way to stop the tide of awakened souls rising. Years later, Sophia stood once more in the ruins of the Wake Lab, watching as new generations of dreamers built the world she had dreamed of. She didn't need to see her name on the plaque. She didn't need any recognition, because when you truly wake up, you don't need permission. You just go, you just build, and you bring others along for the ride. The world was different now. It was a little more awake, and every single person who came through that door, and still would, carried the message she had planted. The dream couldn't be stopped, and neither could they. Sophia turned and walked away, ready to pass on the torch to the next generation. If you're ready to take your dream to the next level, to stop waiting for permission, and to live life by your own terms, hit that subscribe button. Join the revolution. And remember, the world doesn't need your dream to be perfect. It needs you to chase it, no matter what. As the years passed, the seeds of Sophia's vision bloomed into something larger than she could have ever imagined. The Wake Lab had been reduced to rubble, but the people, the movement, and the fire that Sophia ignited were unstoppable. It wasn't about the buildings. It wasn't about the city. It was about the hearts and minds she touched. And those hearts kept beating for change. One day she received a message, a letter sent from a city far across the ocean, from a young woman named Lena, who had discovered Sophia's story. "I saw your lab burn down. I saw the world try to destroy you, but I also saw the dream survive. And because of that, I'm following in your footsteps. I've started something bigger, something global." The letter was a reminder that the dream had passed from one soul to the next. Sophia had ignited a spark in Lena that would fuel a worldwide fire. Sophia sat back, smiling. She'd done more than create a space. She had created a legacy. A generation that no longer waited for permission to follow their dreams. It wasn't just about her anymore. It was about all of them. The world had changed. People had woken up. Sophia watched from a distance as new creators, now free from the chains that once held them, built on the foundation she'd started. They weren't just fighting against the system anymore. They were reshaping it. Lena wasn't the only one. All over the world, Sophia's story had become a rallying cry for those who dared to dream big, for those who weren't afraid of the sacrifices necessary to build a new world. In every corner of the planet, new creators picked up the torch. Some built in fields of art, some in technology, some in social movements. The dream had been reborn in countless forms, and the revolution continued to grow. Sophia stood quietly on the rooftop of her new home, looking out over the city. The sun was setting. The sky painted itself in hues of red and gold. This was the moment she had dreamed of. The world was no longer asleep, and she realized, as she breathed deeply, that the dream was not just a movement. It was a way of living. It was the freedom to create, to question, to innovate, and the courage to sacrifice everything for it. "The dream never dies," she whispered, her voice filled with calm assurance. "It simply passes from one dreamer to the next, and..." As the night sky spread its blanket over the world, she knew the revolution wasn't over. It had only just begun. The question was no longer, can we change the world? It was, how many of us will rise up to do it? And she knew the answer. It would be all of them. If you're ready to be a part of that dream, to rise up, to create, and to change the world, hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment about what you're building, what your dream is, and let's keep this revolution going. Because the dream never dies, and neither do we.